Microphone. It actually helps. Okay. A little bit of a change from the routine today in that we expect our chairman to be a few minutes late. So in my role as vice chairman, I will be serving as acting chairman to start with. All right. We're going to do our exec sessions a little bit out of the order that we might have been expecting because Representative Lane and I discussed a number of these bills, and we think we can probably achieve a consensus. So we'll start with those bills in the absence of our actual chairman. So I'm going to open the executive session on HB 418 relative to eligibility for absentee voting. I'm opening the session, and I believe Representative Wary has a motion he would like to make.
Yes, I would like to make a motion of inexpedient to legislate.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second, Representative Gusowski?
Second, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any discussion on this bill? Representative Wary, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This was one of the bills before the subcommittee, and one of the tasks of the subcommittee was to consolidate the bills, and so we have retained, I believe there were a couple of similar bills, and we retained another bill, and accordingly, we have rendered this one as inexpedient to legislate.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion? Not seeing any, I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Just making sure everybody's here, and I just saw. hold
Yep,
on.
we can wait a moment, certainly. When we are all settled,
Okay,
we do have a quorum. I can see that.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Okay, let's give this a shot.
Yep.
Representative Pudomo Bryan.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary.
Yes?
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Gozowski.
Yes.
Representative Toner.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Grill.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Quayle.
Yes. And could you confirm the count for me, please?
16-0.
Okay, 16-0 of motion of inexpedient to legislate. Without objection, this will go on the consent calendar. Seeing none, this will go on the consent calendar. And with that, I am closing the executive session for HB 418. Next, I will open the executive session for HB 420 relative to the chain of custody for ballots. I believe Representative Toner has a motion he would like to make.
I'd like to make a motion of ITL.
Thank you.
Second.
Does Representative Harvey Bolia have a second?
Second, please.
Thank you. Is there discussion on this bill? Would you care to discuss your motion, Representative Toner? No, he does not care to discuss the motion to find this bill inexpedient to legislate. Is there other discussion? Not seeing any, I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Representative Pudomo Bryan.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary.
Yes?
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Gozowski.
Yes.
Representative Toner.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Vice Chair Quayle.
Yes.
Motion 16-0.
Guess I don't get to vote on that.
Okay, so with a vote of 16-0, the committee has found HB 420 inexpedient to legislate, and without objection, we will place this on the consent calendar. Seeing none, it'll go on the consent calendar, 16-0. Thank you very much. And at this time, if he is, I will continue at the request of the chairman. So with this,
I need to get the bill number because they're all out of order, so I need a little more time to get that information.
I understand.
So sorry.
The bill number we just discussed is HB 420, and I understand perfectly.
Oh, Miss 420?
Yes, you did.
And
Try to be on time in the future, please.
When you're thinking about 420, your time is an issue.
Right. All right, with that, I'm going to close the executive session for HB 420 and open the executive session for HB 423. I believe Representative Wood has a motion he would like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move HB 423 to ITL.
Okay, thank you. And I have a second
Second.
from Representative Toner, and this is HB 423 we're discussing. Is there discussion on the bill? Representative Wood, you recognize.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The discussion of HB 423 definitely felt that public property that is directly abutted to a private citizen needs to be protected for the private citizen so he can decide who puts signs up in front. A lot of discussion on that. The problem with this bill was when we're looking at closest location or not directly in the classical sense of abutted property. So I believe there's something we want to look at as a committee, or at least in the caucus that we talked about. But we felt that there'd be some confusion on either the wrong person being picked with the amount of information that was in that bill, the way that bill was stated. So for that reason, I'm moving the ITL motion.
Oh, okay, thank you, Representative Wood. Is there further discussion on the bill? Representative Newsom.
Thank you. I find the other problem with this bill is that it would be an unconstitutional handoff of state speech on state property to a private individual without any control over the subject matter content of that speech. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there further discussion from the committee? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on HB 423.
Representative Perdomo O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia.
No.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Gosowski.
Yes.
Representative Toner.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Grill.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes.
Vice Chair Quayle.
Yes.
17-1.
Okay, the vote would being 17-1, without objection, this will go on the consent calendar. Seeing no objection, this bill will go on the consent calendar as ITL. And with that, I will close the hearing for HB 423. You ready?
I am ready.
Okay.
All right, I'm back. It's at my sorry guys, I was at my wife's ultrasound and I love her more than you. So
Good.
it
That's good.
wasn't
Yes.
it wasn't in case you're wondering if it was a hard decision what to be late for, it was not. It was I want that on the record, yes. We'll open up the,
Mr. Chair, may I move this be recorded in the permanent journal?
Second.
and it went well for those wondering. We're going to open up the executive session for House Bill 474, requiring background checks for private companies and their contractors who program and maintain New Hampshire voting machines. I'll recognize Representative C for a motion. 574.
Okay. On House Bill 574, I move ITL.
Representative C moves inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 574. Is there a second? Representative Wood seconds. Is there discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 474? 574. I keep saying 474. 574. Got pregnancy brain. Representative Weary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think the intent behind the bill is good as it looks to perhaps deter potential fraud or malfeasance in terms of programmers providing code to machines, but as written, it's currently impractical.
Further discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 574. Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chair Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pajoma O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Weary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gosowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead, Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. With that, the motion of inexpedient to legislate carries on a vote of 18-0 on House Bill 574. Is there any objection to this bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, the bill will be placed on consent calendar. We will close the executive session for House Bill 574. We will open the executive session for House Bill 618, enables election officials to verify the single use of out-of-state driver's licenses presented when a person votes by using the centralized voter registration database. And I recognize Representative Wood for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move House Bill 618 to ITL, please.
Representative Wood moves inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 618. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Representative C seconds. Is there discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 618?
Yep.
Yes, Representative Weary is recognized.
Yes, this was one of the bills that came out of the subcommittee with the recommendation of inexpedient to legislate. And part of the assignment to the subcommittee was the consolidation of bills. There are other bills that are being used to address the general topic that this bill discusses. And so the subcommittee felt it was worthwhile to render it inexpedient to legislate to this full committee.
Is there further discussion on House Bill on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 618? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 618.
Vice Chair Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pajoma O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Weary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gosowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead,
Yes.
Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 618 carries on a vote of 18-0. Is there any objection to this bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, the bill will be placed on consent calendar. Representative Wood, you will be responsible for the committee report. On House Bill 574, Representative C, you will be responsible for the committee report. Going to close the executive section on House Bill 618. We're going to open the executive session for House Bill 684, preventing the use of student identification cards as a means to obtain a ballot. Representative, Weary is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion of inexpedient to legislate.
Is there a second?
Second?
Representative Gosofsky seconds the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 684. Is there discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, you're recognized.
House Bill 684 was again one of the bills before the subcommittee. In the interest of consolidation, and because this addresses similar topics, the subcommittee voted to recommend to this full committee that it be inexpedient to legislate, and that is our recommendation.
Is there further discussion on the motion? Is there further discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 684? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 684.
Vice Chairman Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pujomo O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Weary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gozowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead. Yes. Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of inexpedient to legislate carries on a vote of 18-0. Is there any objection to this bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, the bill will be placed on consent calendar. Representative Wood or Weary, who's going to be responsible for the committee report? Representative Weary will be responsible for the committee report for House Bill 684. Going to close the executive session for House Bill 684. We're going to go to House Bill 686, requiring a voter to provide identification when requesting an absentee ballot. We are in House Bill 686. I will recognize Representative Weary for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For House Bill 686, I'd like to make a motion to retain that bill.
Is there a second on
Second.
Representative Wood eagerly seconds the motion to retain on House Bill 686. Is there discussion on the motion of retain on House Bill 686? Representative Weary is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was one of the bills before the subcommittee. The subcommittee felt it was appropriate to retain this bill to work on some issues we heard discussed during the subcommittee working sessions, to work on better control of the absentee ballot processes. So we are voting to, or the subcommittee voted to retain this. We'd ask this full committee to consider that as well.
Is there further discussion on the motion to retain House Bill 686? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion of retain for House Bill 686.
Vice Chairman Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pujomo O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Weary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gozowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead,
Yes.
Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion to retain carries on a vote of 18-0. I am transmitting the report to the clerk now. That bill is gone. All right, we will close the executive session on House Bill 686, and we will open the executive session for House Bill 160 relative to the contents of the pre-election checklist. And I will recognize Representative Burnham for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to ITL.
Representative Burnham makes the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 160. Is there a second? Representative Pujomo O'Brien eagerly seconds.
Yes, I do.
Is there discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 160? Gonna let the clerk write down some notes real fast before I call the vote. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we got the longest last names on this one. Okay. Hearing no discussion, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 160.
Vice Chair Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Prudhomme O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Weary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gozowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead,
Yes.
Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 160 carries on a vote of 18-0. Is there any objection to this bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, this bill will be placed on the consent calendar. We will close the executive session for House Bill 160. And we will open the executive session for House Bill 289 regarding domicile qualifications for voting. And I will recognize Representative Weary for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to retain House Bill 289.
Representative Weary makes the motion of retain on House Bill 289. Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Wood seconds. Is there discussion on the motion to retain on House Bill 289?
Yes.
Representative Weary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 289 was, again, one of the bills that was before the subcommittee. There are multiple bills on this topic, and this was one of the bills chosen to be retained to continue to work on that topic.
Is there further discussion on the motion to retain House Bill 289? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion to retain House Bill 689. 289.
Vice Chairman Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Prudhomme O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia, Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gozowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore. Yes. Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion to retain carries on a vote of 18-0. We will now close the executive session for House Bill 289, and I am transmitting the report right now. So that bill is gone. Going to open up the executive session for House Bill 323, requiring the presentation of government-issued photographic means of identification in order to vote. And I will recognize Representative Weary for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a recommendation that House Bill 323 be retained. Again, that's the motion. Sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Wood seconds. Is there discussion on the motion to retain House Bill 323? Yes, Representative Weary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As has been mentioned before, this was one of the bills that was before the subcommittee. We had multiple bills on similar topics, and we've chosen to retain some of these bills in order to continue to work on them over the summer.
Is there further discussion on the motion to retain on House Bill 323?
Got the amendment. Question is, what do you want to do?
Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on the motion to retain on House Bill 323.
Vice Chairman Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Prudhomme O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia, Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gozowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead, Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion to retain carries on a vote of 18-0. And I will be transmitting the report in 30 seconds. Going to close the executive session on House Bill 323. The committee is going to stand in recess for 60 seconds before we start up the contentious bills and I get myself organized.
We can do anything we want for 60 seconds.
60 seconds, there's no law. That's how that works.
Wood made me stand right, even when you weren't here. Yeah. And I remember there was this borderline light here, it kind of sweet. That's fine.
Does anybody else have copies upstairs?
Remember, I went to summer camp, somebody
The committee will reopen. The committee will be recessed to the subject to the call of the chair until the ranking member returns with her minority, with her minion, excuse me. Okay, we're going to come back into executive session. Going to open the executive session for House Bill, excuse me. I'm going to open the executive session for House Bill 693 relative to ballot counting procedures and permitting the hand counting of ballots. And I will recognize Representative C for a motion.
On HB 693, move ought to pass.
Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Wood seconds. Are there any amendments? Representative C is recognized.
For House Bill 693, I move amendment 1063H, and I have copies here to pass out.
Okay, can you please distribute those amendments? Is there a second on his motion to move amendment 1063H? My
I will
apologies.
make that.
Representative Wood seconds. My apologies. Okay, Representative C is recognized to speak to his motion.
Thank you. On the original bill, there were two things which I found a problem with. On the first part of the bill, allowing the voter to request to have the ballot hand counted, then there was a requirement that privacy folders be available. I felt that that was not required for this application, so I had that removed. And then in part two, the statement that was added in there, providing the selectman or town clerk at their discretion to, originally it had three things listed in there, but the second item was at their discretion to count the ballots that did not go through the machine. I had that removed because that's a mandatory thing. All the Yokava ballots, any hand counted ballots, and any ballots that were rejected by the machine for overvote or any, all that really did was take out that particular phrase for the those ballots.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on Amendment 2025-0163H? Has everyone had an opportunity? Yes, question. Representative Muirhead's recognized.
Thank you. I would like to ask Representative C whether the sentence in the original bill, line 10, privacy folders shall be available at the polling place. Does that sentence remain in the bill after this amendment?
As I understand it, that bill, that should not be, because it's basically, it's replacing that whole section B on line 9 and 10 and 11.
Further discussion on Amendment 2025-0163H to House Bill 693. Representative, we'll go to the ranking member. Representative Lane's recognized.
But we still have Roman numeral 2 that allows the selectman or the town clerk at their discretion to count the votes, both from a machine or hand count? Or is it just a machine that failed?
Representative C.
It does, it allows two things. It allows the selectman or town clerk, and this is at their discretion, so they don't have to do it, it's just permissive, to conduct a supplemental hand count to confirm the election results for a specific race. And that verifies the machine as well as anything else that's happening in their location. And then, in addition, it allows a hand count of ballots from a machine that failed during the voting period. And depending on the circumstances of how a machine voted, they may or may not need to do this. It just allows it to happen.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Representative Lane's recognized.
I guess, are we comfortable that we're going to allow people at their discretion just to hand count when we've been so careful about everything else about the security and putting them and sealing them? I guess it seems to be contradictory to that. A lot of that's been that we've had discussions about. Yeah.
Representative Muirhead's recognized.
Can I just build on that question, Mr. Chair?
Feel free.
In that section 2, the language says nothing in this section or any other provision of law shall preclude. And I'm assuming that means logically that moderators are permitted to decide to hand count races, since nothing in any other provision of all of New Hampshire law according to this, shall preclude. But am I understanding that correctly? Because ordinarily, if I said nothing shall preclude, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is permitted.
Representative C, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. On that particular issue, in this particular case, normally the moderator is in charge of the election, but in this case, it allows the selectman or town clerk, not the moderator. So this is like a double check in case they feel the concerns with how the moderator ran things.
Further discussion on Amendment 2025-0163H. Representative Newsom.
Thank you. What if the town clerk or various selectmen are on the ballot? They're basically getting a recount for free at that point, and they'd have their hands on the ballots with their names on it, which is, we've done other bills and stuff that I think try to prevent that from happening. And I also question whether this is just would be there as a way to undermine the moderator if folks don't agree with an outcome.
Representative C is recognized.
Thank you. On this, we already have provisions for the people who are on the ballot not to be touching the ballots when they're counted. So if the town clerk is on the ballot, then only one of the selectmen.
May I have a follow-up on that?
Yes, you may.
But I thought, as Representative Muirhead just pointed out, that it says no other provision of law shall preclude. So that other law doesn't preclude their rights under this. Am I wrong on that?
Or we could recess it.
Yeah. We'll no. Representative C, you recognized.
Okay, as I understand it, this allows the town clerk or the selectman to authorize the recount, but it does not, I don't read it as the nothing in this selection shall preclude as allowing the those people to actually touch the ballots.
I'm going to call a 5-minute caucus for the various sides. I think some points have been raised that should be addressed. My friends, my colleagues on the left side of the aisle can use this office here, and Republicans will go down to room 300, and let's give it to 10:50 to discuss, and we'll come back. Okay, so we will reconvene at 10:50. Okay. Oops. All right, we're back. Representative C is recognized to speak.
Like to move that we withdraw the motion for amendment 1063H.
Okay, just Representative C withdraws his motion to move Amendment 1063H to House Bill 693. Representative Wood, do you remove your second?
Yes.
Representative Wood removes his second. The amendment is withdrawn. Representative C, you're recognized.
I wish to withdraw my OTP motion.
Representative C withdraws his motion of ought to pass on 693. Representative Wood, do you withdraw your second?
Withdrawn.
Representative Wood withdraws his second. The motion of ought to pass is withdrawn. Representative C is recognized.
I move retain on House Bill 693.
Representative C moves retain on House Bill 693. Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Wood seconds. We're now on discussion on the motion to retain House Bill 693. Is there discussion on the motion to retain? Okay, we're going to let the clerk get caught up because we've just done a bunch of things.
All right.
Okay. Hearing no discussion for the motion to retain on House Bill 693, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion to retain House Bill 693.
Vice Chair Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pajuma O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia. Yes. Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gozowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead,
Yes.
Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion to retain carries on a vote of 18-0. The report has been transmitted, and we will close the executive session on House Bill 693. Get my notes back up here. We will open the executive session for House Bill 590, and I will recognize Representative C for a motion.
I move ought to pass on House Bill 590.
Representative C moves ought to pass on House Bill 590. Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Wood seconds. Is there any other motions? Representative C is recognized.
I move amendment 0690H, which is coming around.
What can you say the amendment, please, again?
0690.
Representative C moves Amendment 2025-0690H to House Bill 590. Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Wood seconds. We're now on discussion of the amendment on which is coming around. I've just pulled two for you, Madam Clerk. Representative C, please speak to your amendment.
Thank you. On this one, the original bill, it appeared to be creating another way to create a school district rather than amending the section that was there for a cooperative school board that was created with pre-existing districts. This provides that the representatives from each pre-existing district shall be elected within their own district rather than at large.
So further discussion on the amendment 2025-069H. Representative Lane, you're recognized.
Thank you. I think the question that we asked at the original hearing, and I think went unanswered, is what happens to all the existing agreements that are based on this statute already, and that especially as Roman numeral 4 exists now? And we never heard an answer to that question. And this is not something that I'm familiar with, or that our board, or that our committee has really seen much. And the few people that I spoke to who have some experience in this area thought that this bill was confusing. And one of the things that they suggested was just that point. What do you do with all the ones that are already based on Roman numeral 4? Are they now thrown out and they no longer have an agreement? And can we do that?
Representative C.
Thank you. As I read this, the cooperative school board, this just tells how the members are to be elected for the cooperative school board. It doesn't alter any other agreements that they may have.
Representative Newsom.
But what if that agreement calls for at-large membership?
Representative C.
They may have that, but that was already in this particular RSA that already said that it was at large. So this is just changing the at large position on that.
Representative Lane.
Could you point us to that provision, please? I'm just, it's not leaping out at me. Sorry. Thank you. I saw it. It's Roman numeral 1.
Are we in a better spot, or Representative Lane?
I still don't think so, because it's provided further that no cooperative shall be required to conform unless here is so voted pursuant. And you have to meet one of these. So is it okay if it's just Roman numeral 1, or what if a group has decided that they're basing it on Roman numeral 4 as it exists before we vote on this? Are we thereby changing their contract with each other, and they have to go back and write a new one?
Representative C, would you like to respond?
Well, the Roman numeral 1 does not necessarily apply on this. There are several different ways to form a cooperative school district. Roman 1 is one of them, Roman 2 is another, 3 is another, and 4. And 4 is the one that this amendment applies to. As to existing contracts, I do not know the answer to that.
So I think 5 is your catch-all protection. Roman numeral 5. Such other method of selection of cooperative school board members compatible with proportional representation, one man, one vote principle, as it may be approved by the State Board of Education.
So do all of the folks who have Roman numeral 4 as their basis now have to go back to the Board of Education to get approved under Section 5?
It's a great question. Says he doesn't.
Sometimes I have them.
It's a lot of those today. Just trying to reread the amendment.
One was enough.
So I think my confusion on this is within their own district. So they're talking there about the the underlying SAU districts for like when there's, I go back to where I live. So in Ware, we have the Ware School District, which is the elementary school and the middle school. And then we have the John Stark School District, which is our high school. I believe that's what they're referring to. And so this is changing it from, but all members shall be elected at large to who shall be elected within their own district. But you gotta, I recognize Representative Weary. You gotta speak into the mic and ask your question.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So wouldn't Roman numeral 1, all members of the cooperative school board shall be elected at large, and then 4 presents an exception to that? Is that?
No, these are just for an alternative methods. So one is the jungle where everybody goes in
Okay.
and good luck. And this is establishing a form of elections for school board where you elect it by the pre-existing school district. and making sure that the pre-existing district has at least one resident representative. Because I remember the issue with this underlying bill was you could have a situation where, I'll go back to Ware and Hopkinton. So you have Henniker, excuse me. You have residents of Henniker picking the Ware representative and the residents of Ware picking the Henniker representative, which creates an issue because the only thing that they're really doing is living there, but the people who have the voting power are dictating who's represented. That's the problem that they're trying to address. I actually like the problem that they're trying to address because it bothers me that people who don't live in the district get to decide who represents that district. And I'd imagine it probably would bother most people in this room that that's the case. The question is this being done in a way that doesn't upend those contracts, but tries to bring that in? And I think thankfully we have two attorneys on our committee.
Non-practicing attorneys.
I'd like the
just
record to
be
reflect
clear.
that I'm inactive retired.
Representative Muirhead's recognized.
I'm getting a better appreciation of the problem that this is trying to solve. I have to confess, at first I didn't understand that. So I appreciate that. I'm now just trying to think through how it would be operationalized, and I'm wondering, it makes sense in theory. I'm wondering if it makes sense in practice. And my question, sorry to be long-winded, is do we have, are our voting places contiguous with these pre-existing districts within cooperative school districts such that we could operationalize a vote within each district?
I think that's not a problem because this is done by mostly towns. And I'm not aware of a city that splits an SAU, but somebody's probably tweeting right now about how wrong I am about that. Representative C is recognized.
In this case, the sponsor of the bill happens to be part of the Merrimack Valley School District, which includes 4 towns plus the Pennacook section of Concord. And the Pennacook section of Concord tends to overwhelm the smaller towns, particularly Webster and Salisbury.
So Concord doesn't send all of its children to one school district?
It's historic, and I don't remember why, but it's been done for ages, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but that's the way it is.
Well, at least I was immediately proved wrong on my theory. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so
And as you may recall, Representative Bricky, who was here last week substituting, she is the chair of that particular board. And she's one of the people that I talked to about these bills. And she said they're just maybe well-intended and there is an issue, but didn't think that they got to the heart of the issue. Seems to me this may be another one we want to retain and get some experienced folks on it. I don't know.
okay, Representative Quayle is recognized.
I've read the amendment. I've read the original bill. In my opinion, the amendment is an improvement on the original bill, but I understand the point that's been raised that changing the RSA so it no longer enables an existing school cooperative unit's existing agreement. I can see where that's problematic. And I think we could probably recognize the problem and fix it by adding a totally different section that leaves the existing section but adds this additional alternative. There's already 5 alternatives here that are in the statute, so they don't require the approval of the State Board of Education. So we could just add what's currently 5 with that change, just make it number 6. And that would fix it. That's a simple fix. We're already coming back in November for a number of bills that we've retained.
Really looking forward to that.
And we all are, I'm sure. We get together again and enjoy each other's company once again.
Will there be turkey?
That's up to you. Okay, here, my thought is that we retain this. I think we can fix this simply to get the original intent of the amendment into statute. And that simple fix would be simply to add a Roman numeral 6, or Roman, whatever, however you want to number it. Add another clause between 4 and 5, which just says you can set up a cooperative school district that elects members from each district based on election in the district. All right. So it's a simple fix, in my opinion. We retain it. It will not add a lot to our workload in November. So my recommendation is we retain it.
Okay. Is there further discussion? We're on the amendment.
Representative.
Representative Woods recognized.
Yeah, I'm not certain adding another spot, and I'm not even sure we should discuss this now. I have no trouble retaining it, but I'm just not certain adding another position here fixes the problem that the bill came in front of this committee for. Because you're gonna have that overwhelming influence on making that change. And if they get two options, I don't see how they're gonna do it.
Okay, let's back this thing out and retain it because we're going to be here till midnight working on this. So, Representative C, will you withdraw your motion for the amendment?
I withdraw my motion for amendment 0690.
Representative Wood, will you withdraw your second?
Withdrawn.
The amendment is withdrawn. Representative C, will you withdraw your OTP motion?
I withdraw my OTP motion.
Representative C withdraws his OTP motion. Representative Wood, will you withdraw your second?
Withdraw my second.
Okay, Representative C is recognized to make a new motion.
I move retain on House Bill 590.
Representative C moves retain on House Bill 590. Representative Wood seconds.
Second.
Is there discussion on the motion to retain? Hearing none. Are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman Quayle.
Yes.
Representative Pudom O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Gozowski.
Yes.
Representative Toner.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Grill.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion to retain carries on a vote of 18-0. The report is being transmitted now, and we will close the executive session on House Bill 590. We will open the executive session on House Bill 385, reestablishing voter identification exceptions. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Lane is recognized for a motion.
Okay, I will move to pass on 385.
Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Wilhelm seconds. Is there an amendment?
Yes, there is an amendment. I move amendment 2025-0656H.
Representative Lane moves Amendment 2025-0656H to Amendment House Bill 385. Representative Wilhelm seconds the motion. We are now in discussion of Amendment 2025-0656H. Representative Lane is recognized to speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the request in the subcommittee, Representative Weary asked me to go through and make sure that there had not been any errors when OLS and I worked on getting this bill. Effectively is designed to repeal HB 1569, which passed last year, and to go through and make sure we had caught all the cleanup. And that's what this bill that you have in front of us, there were amendments, sorry, thank you. What the amendment in front of you does, it makes a couple different changes. They're not major. They don't change the intent of the bill. It's cleanup. If you'd like, I can go through it, but at least in the subcommittee, they didn't want to go through it.
Okay, well, do you want to hear from the chair of the subcommittee, Representative Weary?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Amendment notwithstanding, and I appreciate the efforts of Representative Lane to review a extremely lengthy bill and to make sure that it was all appropriate. Regardless of that amendment, the subcommittee did vote to move this or recommend to the committee at large in expedient to legislate. And so the subcommittee does not support the bill in itself as a matter of policy.
Okay, we're in discussion of the amendment. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, our rules allow us to adopt an amendment by voice vote, and I'll be utilizing that rule. All in favor of adopting Amendment 2025-0650H, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. We are now on a new motion. Representative Lane is recognized for a motion.
I move ought to pass on HB 1569 as amended. Oh, I'm sorry.
Woo! I don't think you
for
can.
that.
You don't get a redo on that one, Representative Lane.
I was looking at Representative Lynn and I just got confused. So, okay. I move ought to pass as amended on HB 385 as amended by 2025-0656H.
Representative Lane moves ought to pass as amendment to House Bill 385 with Amendment 2025-0658. Representative Wilhelm seconds. We're now on discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended. Is there discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended? Representative Weary is recognized. Representative Lane, I'm going to thank you. You got me. I was going to shut your mic off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just again, House Bill 385 does essentially repeal the bill from last year, 1569. As a matter of policy, we think it is good to have voters fully qualified and to provide proof of their qualifications, and therefore we don't think that 385 is appropriate, and it was voted out of the subcommittee with a recommendation of ITL.
Okay. We're on further discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 385. Is there further discussion? Representative Lane is recognized.
Thank you. Just for the record, we brought this because the bill itself is in litigation, which we think ultimately we can all disagree about this, I guess, but ultimately be successful. And our thought was we could save the state thousands of dollars in attorney's fees by overturning it, rather than wait 2 to 3 years for the court to make a decision. That was the main reason we brought the bill.
I understand. Is there yes, Representative Wilhelm to recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in the last month during municipal elections, there were 46 voters, at least 46 that were turned away. 3 of them, my understanding, had their license, passport, or birth certificate and proof of domicile, but their maiden name didn't match up with their identification. And believe it or not, they didn't have their marriage certificate on them. I just feel like the state should not be in the business of turning away qualified voters, which is now the proven impact of House Bill 1569. So in addition to the financial impact, I just want to remind everyone that, we want everyone who is a qualified voter to be able to vote. And there are proven cases of individuals who were turned away just in the last month. And so that number is going to increase when we get to the midterm elections. And I also think, just to piggyback on Representative Lane's point about the financial impact of litigation, just yesterday in House Finance, the Republicans voted to abolish the Office of the Child Advocate, which protects kids. And I just think that as we're seeing declining revenues, we need to be responsible of the dollars that the state has, and we shouldn't be putting the state up to defend a bill like 1569. Thanks.
Further discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 385. All right, I have my thoughts. to address Representative Williams' concerns, that they're not qualified voters because they have to prove their qualifications. We don't just the era of having people pinky swear they are who they say they are and they are a U.S. citizen. It's gone. And when you look at the comments online, when these articles that are very slanted to the left, the comments are overwhelmingly positive. People, the citizens of New Hampshire, want to know that only U.S. citizens are voting in their elections. I think that is a critical piece of this. And I think since we're kind of meandering into other topics that aren't election law, we had an administration that for 4 years had an open border that brought in how many millions of undocumented immigrants and undocumented migrants, illegal immigrants, whatever you want, whatever name you want to put on them. But the fact of the matter is 10 million came across the southern border. And if we don't put on some sort of protection at this point, that's a thing. 1569 was passed, and the voters went to the polls in November, knowing that 1569 was coming online, and they reaffirmed the party that passed those policies. I have no problem with people showing proof of citizenship. You need proof of citizenship these are the same documents you need to get a real ID, which now means you need it to fly. So if you want to go through the airport, it's the same burden to go through the airport now, or at least it will be in 2 months. So I'm sure someone will want to refute those statements, but those are my thoughts on it. If no one wants to refute it, we can call the roll. All right. The clerk will call the roll on the motion of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 385.
Vice Chairman Quayle.
No.
Representative Pudum O'Brien.
No.
Clerk says no. Representative Wary.
No.
Representative Wood.
No.
Representative Harvey Bolia.
No.
Representative C.
No.
Representative Gozowski.
No.
Representative Toner.
No.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Grill.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes no. The motion of ought to pass as amended fails on a vote of 8 to 10. Representative Weary is recognized.
I'd like to make a motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 385.
Representative Weary moves inexpedient to legislate in House Bill 385. Is there a second?
I will second.
Representative Burnham seconds. We're now on discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 385. I think I know what the vote's going to be. Is there discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 385.
Vice Chairman Quayle.
Yes.
Representative Pudum O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Gozowski.
Yes.
Representative Toner.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
No.
Representative Ward.
No.
Representative Gilmore.
No.
Representative Muirhead. Representative Bay.
No.
Representative Grill.
No.
Representative Wilhelm.
No.
Representative Newsom.
Nope.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of inexpedient to legislate carries on a vote of 10 to 8. Representative Weary, you will be responsible for the majority report. Who will be responsible for the minority report?
That will be me.
Okay. We will close the executive session for House Bill 385. I missed 412, so we're going to go back up. We're going to open the executive session for House Bill 412 relative to elections and appointments to fill vacancies of local cooperative school boards. Representative C is recognized for a motion.
For HB 412, I move ITL.
Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Toner seconds. Is there a discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 412? Representative C is recognized.
This bill is very similar to HB 590, which we are retaining, and this would just be a duplicative effort here.
Is there further discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 412? I will say I would like to see the Representative C. I know you're going to work on 590. I would like to see the concerns of 412 worked into 590, if you could, when you're working on this. Is there further discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 412? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 412.
Vice Chairman Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pudoma O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gozowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead, Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Grill,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of inexpedient to legislate carries on a vote of 18-0. Is there any objection to this bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, the bill will be placed on the consent calendar. We will close the executive session for House Bill 412. We will open the executive session for House Bill 217 relative to absentee ballots. And I will recognize, as soon as I get to my notes, recognize Representative Weary for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion of ought to pass.
Representative Weary moves ought to pass on House Bill 217. Is there a second?
I will second.
Representative Burnham seconds the motion of ought to pass. We're now on discussion of the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 217. Is there discussion? Representative Lane is recognized.
We are against the policy. This is perpetuating the policy. And yes, we understand that voters should be qualified, but there's been no evidence presented that the citizenship affidavits didn't work. In fact, for federal elections, they are required. And you can't have, an affidavit suffices. So for those reasons, excuse me, we would, we're going to be voting against this bill. We also, in the committee report, you'll see that if we're going to pass the bill, we'd like to have it so that the voters who are in jail, which we heard testimony about 85% of them can vote, that the affidavit and the notary be extended to them the way it is about nursing homes. So thank you.
Further discussion on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 217. Representative Weary is recognized.
Yes, I want to echo in part some of the comments made by Representative Lane. There is current language about nursing facilities and other similar facilities in the present RSA. The aspect about correctional facilities would help clarify, but we do need to make certain that it is consistent with language elsewhere in the RSAs about, this would apply to detainees and not to people convicted of crimes necessarily. And so it was a suggestion coming out of the subcommittee that because this, both the majority and minority within the subcommittee felt that this was a good idea, but that we should work on that and offer it as a bipartisan bill next time. So we think that Representative Lane has mentioned a very good idea. Again, the purpose of the bill really makes certain that there are no gaps between 1569 and the use of absentee ballots. And that's really what HB 217 really gets at.
Is there further discussion on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 517? I will note, I'm not going to talk about the actual underlying bill, but I think one of the things that this committee should start doing is, and I think it will help both sides, is instead of referring to things that as affidavits, which are not kind of legally affidavits, the NVRA language is confirmation or affirmation. So just not for this bill, not to discuss right now. I just kind of wanted to toss that out there while we're kind of tangentially touching it. I think that will bring the temperature down a little bit on this issue when we're discussing that in the future. As I learned last night when I was rereading the NVRA, because that's what I do in my spare time. With that, we will. Are you ready for the question on the motion of?
One thought.
Oh, yes, Representative Ward.
Thank you. Sorry to be late to the party here. And just, this bill to me seems to confuse registering to vote and requesting an absentee ballot. And as a second point, I noticed that it was overwhelmingly opposed online and in person during the hearing. Nobody wants this, really.
Further discussion on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 217. Hearing none, are you ready for the question? Clerk will call the roll on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 217.
Vice Chairman Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pudomo O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gozowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
No.
Representative Ward,
No.
Representative Gilmore,
No.
Representative Muirhead, Representative Bay,
No.
Representative Grill,
No.
Representative Wilhelm,
No.
Representative Newsom,
No.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of ought to pass carries on a vote of 10-8. Get my notes here. On to House Bill 217. Representative Weary, you will be responsible for the majority report. Representative Lane, who will be responsible for the minority report?
I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. We're going to, as per usual, Representative Lane, we are putting you down. Going to close the executive session for House Bill 217. We will open the executive session for 281. Requiring voter checklist be supplied in a sortable format. I will recognize Representative Weary for a motion.
Yes. Sorry. My apologies. Just getting my.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have some notes here. I apologize. We had recessed this bill. We were on a motion of ought to pass as amended previously. I need Representative Weary to withdraw his motion of ought to pass as amended. Withdraw the amendment.
Yes.
Wait, hold on a second. We had all right, I'm going over my notes here. We
Mr.
had,
Chair,
yes, Representative
could
Weary.
I ask that we recess for 5 minutes?
Okay, yeah, I could use a break. Talk to my parents. All right, do we need to, do you need to caucus or do you need to recess?
So
Do you just need a minute to organize?
I've heard from the Secretary of State's office regarding this, and they would request some language change. And so I'm, in the spirit of retaining everything, I would perhaps suggest that we just retain this.
Okay, so we don't need to recess right now. We
No,
just need to retain.
yeah, it could,
Okay.
yes, yes. Okay, I make a motion to retain the bill.
You have to withdraw
all right.
everything else. So the first thing you got to do is withdraw your OTPA.
All right, I'd like to withdraw that.
Representative Wood, do you withdraw your second?
Second.
All right, and now I need you to withdraw Representative Weary your OTP.
I would like to withdraw that.
All right, you withdraw, the OTP is withdrawn. Representative Wood, do you withdraw your second?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, now we're going to just add on to our pile. Representative Weary is recognized.
I'd like to make a motion to retain this bill so we can clean up some of the language.
Okay, Representative Weary makes the motion to retain House Bill 281. Is there a second? Representative Wood seconds. I will see you guys in November for Exec from Heck Part 2, apparently. Representative Weary, would you like to speak to your motion to retain House Bill 281?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the Secretary of State's office had requested that some of the language be clarified and that they only be required to submit or to create one type of report. So they want consistency between sections Roman numeral 3 and Roman numeral 4. And so because of that, we'll clean that up and be ready to go in November.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion to retain House Bill 281? Representative Lane, it looks like one of your members has stepped out. Are you comfortable having the vote while they're gone?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion of retain on House Bill 281? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion to retain House Bill 281.
Vice Chairman Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pudomo Bryan.
Yes.
Clerk, yes. Representative Wary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gazowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner.
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead. Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion to retain carries on a vote of 17-0. I will transmit the report here in a minute. Going to close the executive session for House Bill 281. Going to open the executive session for House Bill 341, which is, I lost my spot, requiring the Secretary of State to check voter records prior to every election. I will recognize Representative Weary for a motion.
I would move ought to pass.
Representative Weary moves ought to pass on House Bill 381. Is there a second? Representative C eagerly seconds. I got your, I saw your head, Don.
340.
I'm sorry, not three. Yeah, 341. We're on 341. I said three. Did I say 380? Oh, I meant 341. We're on 341. I read the title right. Requiring the Secretary of State to check vote records every election, right? But that's the title of the bill, is it not? Okay. Okay. So I did read the title correctly. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Well, you can bring that up during our executive session, but that is the title. So we have multiple amendments on this bill. So normally we adopt each other's amendments unless there's major changes. Obviously, we can't adopt both amendments. So I apologize that kind of breaking of our normal decorum. I will allow both amendments to be moved and voted on, but we can't do our normal courtesy. So Representative Ward is recognized.
I just had a question. Would it be possible to entertain a motion to retain this one too, since we're in the mood?
You know, normally I would just say no and move on, but we've already retained so many that it would be rude not to. So
I think
it would be rude not to.
if I could just add to that a little bit.
Yeah. Representative Weir, are you okay withdrawing your motion to OTP?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Representative C, do you withdraw your second? Okay. Representative Ward moves retain on House Bill 341. Just really see you guys in it. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Representative Weary seconds it. We did a bipartisan thing. Look at us. All right. We're on discussion of the motion to retain on House Bill 341. Representative Ward is recognized.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Representative Weary for working on this so hard, and I think by the fall we can come to a agreement on what it should be. It's turned from a very simple bill into getting off into various directions that I think we can hammer that out given a little more time. So I appreciate the courtesy of extending our discussions.
And you will have all summer and the early part of fall to do so. So no excuses.
Nothing else to do. Yes,
We can reread the NVRA like I do. All right. Is there any further discussion on the motion to retain House Bill 341? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll on the motion to retain House Bill 341.
Vice Chairman Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pudomo Bryan.
Yes.
Clerk, it says yes. Sorry. Representative Wary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia.
Yeah.
Representative C. Yes. Representative Gosowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead,
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Okay, girl's still not here. Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion to retain carries on a vote of 17-0. Going to close the executive session for House Bill 341. I'm having flashbacks from last year when I said we won't retain a bill ever. And now, how naive I was.
We
17
didn't
to 0.
have 75 bills last year.
That's true. Yeah, on 341, 341 was retained 17-0. 281 was also retained 17-0 because of Representative Grill's absence. No problem. If anyone else wants to know, I can try to read my Egyptian hieroglyphs. That is my handwriting. Okay, 2 more bills. We're almost there. Going to open up the executive session for House Bill 270, requiring the preservation of electronic ballot counting devices, memory chips. And there's an amendment. Lord. Okay.
We have to,
Yep.
we had a pending motion.
We had a pending motion on this. Hold on.
Yes, it was adopt amendment 2025.
Okay.
77H.
I'm going to get there. Okay. So we did have, as the clerk, the vice chair is correct. We were on a pending motion of adopting amendment 2025-0877H. So the motion, I would need a motion to withdraw the adoption of the amendment from Representative C.
I move to withdraw amendment 0877H.
And Representative Burnham, do you withdraw your second?
Yes, I do.
Okay. The underlying motion of ought to pass is fine. Representative C would like to move a new amendment.
Yes, I for HB 270, I move amendment 2025-1053H, which has just been passed around.
Okay. Representative C moves amendment 2025-1053H to House Bill 270. Representative Burnham seconds the motion.
I do. Thank you.
Representative C, please speak to your amendment.
Okay, on this amendment, it was just a clarification in 5 places on page 1, lines 6, 8, 11, and 13. The original term in the bill was electronic counting device. The secretary wanted it to be electronic ballot counting device. And on line 20, on page 1, it was originally just saying when the town clerk receives the memory device from the vendor, and it should have said programmed memory device. So this adds the word programmed, and it makes it consistent with the next line. Those are the only changes from the previous amendment.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Representative Lane?
Were those the only comments from the Secretary of State? Because I did contact him and he gave me some information, but I didn't know if maybe he talked to you about the AccuVote memory cards, that situation. Is that covered in this?
Yes, Representative C, sorry. Yes.
Yes, it's covered 2 ways. On line 8 and 13, it says the extra electronic ballot counting device memory cards that were programmed for but not used during the election are exempt from preservation. So that gives part of it. And then on line 26, which was already in there, was preserving the ballots as provided in RSA 33A:3A or as directed by the Secretary of State. So he can make a direction of how to do that. And also some of the cards are being more available because as more and more towns adopt new machines, those cards become available.
Okay.
Representative Lane, you're recognized.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you.
I'm trying to let the conversation kind of free flow without,
Yeah.
but maintain decorum.
So that discretion is directed towards the AccuVote cards, at least when you drafted it.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess a general question is, are we comfortable giving that kind of broad range to the Secretary of State? And I just raised that as, not that I'm saying he has any, I'm not saying that, it's just as we as a committee, we haven't talked about that. So I just wanted to make sure.
Representative Lane, you sound like a conservative talking about restraining the uncontrolled executive branch's powers. I'll give you the party registration
a
form. change later.
constitutionalist would be what I would call myself.
Further discussion on the amendment? Representative Lane, are you comfortable with a voice vote or would you like a recorded vote on the amendment?
Yeah.
With a voice vote? Okay. Representative Newsom?
In line 22, do we know if these towns and town clerks have safes?
They have to have safes for other purposes as well. And it's just a matter of whatever safe the town provides for them. They just have to record who has access to it.
Representative Lane?
That might work for towns because most of them have one polling place, but are they supposed to be kept in a, how do we get them from the safe to the polling place and then the polling place back to the safe?
do they
Because
do it?
I don't think every polling place has a safe. Is that what the boxes and all the tapes for?
Representative C?
In the process of, I would assume that in the process of doing the testing of machines, that's when they would get the program cards to the machine and the machines to where they're going to test them. And then that card would stay in the machine. And then when the machine gets set up in the polling place for election day, it would still be there.
Thank you. I wasn't trying to be facetious. I really wasn't quite clear on that. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, our rules allow us to adopt amendments by voice vote. The ranking member said she's fine with a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting Amendment 2025-1053H to House Bill 270, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Representative C is recognized for a motion.
I move House Bill 270 with Amendment 2025-1053H as ought to pass as amended.
Representative C moves ought to pass as amended on House Bill 270 with Amendment 2025-0153H. Is there a second?
I will second.
Representative Burnham seconds. We're now in discussion of on the motion of ought to pass as amended. Is there discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended? Representative Gilmore is recognized.
In after every election, we preserve the ballots for 22 months. Does these memory cards, are we going to be preserving them for infinity? What's the point here?
The
Same amount?
purpose of retaining is if there's a court challenge or something and they want to do a forensic audit of the machine, that the program memory card would be available for that.
I believe to answer your question more directly, Representative, I think they're retained for 22 months. That's how I read it. Am I incorrect on that?
No.
Oh, they're
that's-
retained forever.
yeah. No, 22 months.
22 months, okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's yeah,
on
line
local
7.
elections, it only needs to be saved for 60 days.
Oh, wow. There you go.
It's only where there's a federal election involved
That's
that
22 months.
the federal requirement is that they be preserved for 22
Yeah,
months.
and that's on line 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all on the same page. So 60 days for local elections and 22 months for federal elections. Representative Gilmore. Representative Lane is recognized.
Thank you. I hate to do this, but I think we need a brief caucus.
That's totally fine.
5
So-
minutes.
So
we'll
long as
probably
you
do
don't
it.
get to the lunch, the lunch.
I know about the lunch thing. Okay.
All right. Let's come back we have two more bills left. So let's come back at 11:55.
This is one of the two also.
This is one of the two. All right, we're back. Okay, we are in discussion of the motion of ought to pass as amended. We are in discussion of the amendment 2025-0153H. Representative Lane is recognized for a question.
Actually, I would like to defer to Representative Newsom.
My
That's
apologies.
great. Thank
Representative
you.
Newsom is recognized for a question.
Thank you. Could somebody walk me through the deletions on page 2, lines 20 to 27, and sort of what's going on there? Thank you.
Representative C is recognized.
Okay, currently, in, the RSA, which has been there for quite some time, it, on line 20 on page 2, it has whenever the town or city clerk receives a memory device from the vendor, the clerk shall break the seal on the memory device and insert it into the ballot counting device, apply a seal and everything else there. The issue here is it doesn't need to be done right away, and in order to do that, the clerk would have to make sure that there's 2 witnesses available, get the machine out of the closet or vault or wherever it might be stored, and it just didn't need to be done immediately. It's when the clerk receives it, they should be protecting it within the safe or whatever. And then the next part 8 there, was when the after the election, when the memory device is removed from the machine, that the memory card be immediately returned to the vendor.
Representative Newsom, does that satisfy you, or do you want to
I
follow
think
up?
it does, because it sounds like the changes on page 1 kind of take over for what these are doing and sort of replace that just in a different place.
Yes.
So that is very helpful. Thank you very much.
Of course.
And these were also based on the AccuVote machine. We're now having other machines available, so that this cleans it up.
Like the far superior Voting Works machines, in case you can't tell which ones I like. Further discussion on the amendment 2025-1053H. Okay, our rules allow us to adopt amendments by a voice vote. All in favor of adopting amendment 2025-1053H, say aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Representative C is recognized for a motion. No.
I move that HB 270 be ought to pass with amendment 2025-1053H.
Representative C moves ought to pass as amended on House Bill 270 with amendment 2025-0153H. Is there a second?
I will second.
Representative Burnham seconds. We're now in discussion of the motion of ought to pass as amended. Is there discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended? Hearing none. Are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll when she's ready.
Vice Chairman Quayle.
Yes.
Representative Prudhomme O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Gozowski.
Yes.
Representative Toner.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead. Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of ought to pass as amended carries on a vote of 17-0. Is there any objection to this bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, House Bill 270 will be placed on the consent calendar as ought to pass as amended with Amendment 2025-1053H. Representative C, you'll be responsible for the committee report. We will close the executive session for House Bill 270, and I believe we wanted to take up 367 again. So we will reopen the executive session for House Bill 367. I recognize Representative Weary for a motion.
I think there is a a reconsideration that needs to occur?
I think you would have to move reconsideration.
Can I move reconsideration?
You may move reconsideration on House Bill 367. Representative Weary moves reconsideration on House Bill 366.
We got it.
House Bill 367. Is there a second? Representative Lane seconds the motion for reconsideration. The bill is open and open to a motion. Is there a motion? Representative Weary is recognized for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion of ought to pass.
Representative Weary moves ought to pass. Is there a second? Representative Lane seconds. Oh, Representative Lane withdraws her second.
Yeah, just in case.
Okay. Is there a second? Representative Quayle seconds the motion of ought to pass.
Correct.
Are there any amendments?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Representative Weary would like to move an amendment.
Yes, I'd like to make a move to adopt Amendment 2025-1070H, which I believe the committee has before it.
1070H. Yep, we do have it. Does everybody have a copy of it in front of them? Two of them. Okay. We need a second.
I'll second.
Representative Quayle seconds the motion for the amendment. We're now on discussion of Amendment 2025-1070H to House Bill 367. Representative Weary, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yes, so this helps to clean up some aspects of it. The other college professor on this committee helped me craft this, and basically what the bill had done, it addressed establishing partisan or nonpartisan ballot systems. In reviewing it, it was determined that there was no provision for returning to an unofficial ballot system if one was so desired. And so we felt that, and it wasn't clear in the original RSA that the mechanism for adopting an unofficial ballot system. So it seemed appropriate to make sure that all the bases were covered. And so now, as amended, this provides for the adoption of an unofficial ballot system in 66911A and the adoption of a partisan official ballot system in 66912 and the adoption of a nonpartisan ballot system in 66913. And I believe Representative Newsom also helped along the way of alerting me to this issue. So I want to give credit where credit is due. And that's all the comments on that.
Okay, is there further discussion on Amendment 2025-1070H? Representative Muirhead is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is just one of clarification. My sense looking at the amendment is that towns with an unofficial ballot system can use the procedure detailed in this bill as it would be amended to adopt either a partisan or nonpartisan. Oh, no, excuse me. I withdraw the question. Now I understand. I see 66911-A. Got it. So all three things could be adopted. I'm just going to sit here and talk to myself a little bit more. I'm going to turn the microphone off, though, while I do this.
So long as you don't get into an argument, you're fine. Further discussion on...
I won the argument.
I would like to note you also lost it. We're on discussion of Amendment 2025-1070H. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, Representative Lane, are you comfortable with a voice vote on the amendment? All right. Our rules allow us to adopt amendments by a voice vote. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of adopting Amendment 2025-1070H to House Bill 367 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Representative Weary is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion of ought to pass of House Bill 365 as amended by 2025-1070H.
Okay. Representative Weary makes a motion of ought to pass on amended on House Bill 367 with Amendment 2025-1070H. Is there a second? Representative Quayle seconds the motion of ought to pass as amended. Is there discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended? Yes, Representative Lane.
I just want to say that I thought this was great because after we passed the bill after we voted on the bill last time, we all still kept working together to get it right. So I do appreciate that. And thank you to those involved.
Very nice. It's a great way to end our last regular bill. Further discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 367. Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll. On the motion of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 367 with Amendment 2025-1070H.
Vice Chairman Quayle,
Yes.
Representative Pudom O'Brien.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative Harvey Bolia,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Gozowski,
Yes.
Representative Toner,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead,
Yes.
Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of ought to pass as amendment carries on a vote of 17-0. Representative Weary will be responsible for the committee report. I don't have any, going to close the executive session for House Bill 367. I don't have any other bills in front of us. Mr. Allen, have we covered all of our bills, the regular calendar bills? Yay for us. And that last bill will go on consent calendar without objection. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, yes, Representative Quayle.
Did we place HB 270 on the consent calendar?
I think we did, but does anyone have an objection to HB 270 being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, it will be placed on the consent calendar.
Thank
All
you.
right, if you, committee reports. I need all of them by basically this afternoon. Please, if you have outstanding committee reports, don't leave until they're done because otherwise I have to write them. And once again, you may or may not like that. And with that, I will see you guys on Thursday. And I don't believe we're meeting next Tuesday, so we don't have any business. So I don't know why we would meet. So won't see you next Tuesday. And I don't think we have any second committee bills that I'm aware of. So at this point, we are standing with bated breath for our friends from the Senate to send us some bills. All right. I'll see you guys on Thursday.